That afternoon, sunlight streamed through the latticed windows into the main hall. I sat in the seat of honor, watching my younger sister Shen Huayu accept the marriage contract from father's hands with undisguised triumph. Thank you for tuning into Chamber Tales of Survival. Let me share you today's story. Elder sister, surely you don't resent me. Shen Huayu turned to face me, her eyes glinting with a shrewdness I'd never seen before. After all, marrying the heir of the Duke of Dingguo's household is what every girl in the capital dreams of. A concubine-born daughter, like you, was never suited to such a match. I lowered my gaze without responding, but Shen Huayu wouldn't let it rest. She approached me and lowered her voice. Don't be too upset, sister. Father has already arranged another match for you with His Highness, the Crown Prince. At those words, my head snapped up. What, sister didn't know? Shen Huayu covered her mouth with a light laugh, then leaned close to my ear, her voice dropping to where only we could hear. Spend this lifetime married to that invalid, sister. Let's see how you enjoy living as a grass widow. My heart went cold, so she had been reborn as well. Memories of my previous life flooded back like a tide. Then, I had married young Master Pei, whilst Shen Huayu had married the Crown Prince. But the Crown Prince had died within 6 months of ascending the throne, and Shen Huayu had spent 3 years in widowhood before being permitted to remarry. In this life, she'd stolen my betrothal to push that fate of widowhood onto me instead. Huayu speaks truly, Mother said coldly from the side. For a concubine's daughter to marry into the imperial family is already an enormous blessing. Don't be ungrateful. The several concubines nearby whispered amongst themselves, their gazes full of pity. Everyone in the Shen household knew that His Highness, the Crown Prince, had been sickly for years. The physicians said he wouldn't live past 25, and at 23 now, this marriage was merely to bring him good fortune through joy. I deliberately lowered my head in a show of meekness, my fingers trembling slightly. Your daughter will obey father's arrangements. A flash of triumph crossed Shen Huayu's eyes. She thought I was still that same Shen Yanhuan who could be bullied at will. But she didn't know that half the blood of a pomegranate spirit flowed through my veins. It had happened 5 years ago. Whilst gathering herbs in the back mountains, I'd lost my footing and tumbled down a cliff, landing precisely in the cave dwelling of a 1,000-year-old pomegranate spirit. The spirit's life force was nearly spent, and seeing my kind heart, it transferred half its essence to me. Pomegranates symbolize many children and great blessings, and that essence not only strengthened my body but blessed me with extraordinary fertility if I wished it. Bearing children would be as easy as breathing. Father, I raised my head, my eyes showing just the right amount of determination. Your daughter is willing to marry His Highness the Crown Prince to fulfill her filial duty to the Shen family. Father nodded with satisfaction and had the steward fetch the marriage contract sent by the Eastern Palace. I accepted that thin sheet of paper, my name written upon it in gold powder Shen Yanhuan. Shen Huayu stood to one side, her smile nearly overflowing. She must be thinking her foolish elder sister had been duped again, but she could never imagine who would truly be left gobsmacked in this life. As night fell, I sat alone in my chambers, organizing my dowry. The pomegranate spirit is essence warming within me, as if responding to my inner excitement. Miss, the second miss has come again, my maid Chunksing announced, pushing through the door with some nervousness. Show her in, I said, setting down my account book. Shen Huayu entered in a pale yellow gown, carrying a bowl of bird's nest soup. Elder sister, I heard you've been busy with dowry matters these past days. I had the kitchen prepare bird's nest specially to nourish you. I accepted the bowl with thanks. Shen Huayu sat opposite me, her eyes scanning the room. Sister has quite a substantial dowry. Father has been rather generous. However, she paused deliberately. Once you bring these things to the Eastern Palace, I'm afraid you won't have long to use them before you're wearing mourning white. I kept my eyes lowered as I sipped the soup, offering no response. Seeing my lack of reaction, Shen Huayu grew anxious. Sister, aren't you frightened? His Highness the Crown Prince is gravely ill. He could die at any moment. What use is fear? I interrupted. Father's command cannot be defied. The betrothal is set. Disappointment flickered in Shen Huayu's eyes. She'd hoped to see me panic, but I appeared utterly resigned instead. True enough, she said with a cold laugh. Sister has always been timid, accustomed to accepting your fate. Oh, I've heard His Highness not only suffers from poor health, but has a most peculiar temperament, punishing servants at the slightest provocation. Sister must be careful in your service to him. I set down the bowl and finally looked up at her. Thank you for the warning, younger sister. I shall be mindful. Seeing my compliance, Shen Huayu's satisfaction grew. She stood to leave, but added before departing, By the way, sister, young Master Pei will come to the manor tomorrow to deliver betrothal gifts. If you wish to watch, do come. She paused. After all, he was meant to be your husband originally. After she left, Chunxing couldn't contain herself. Miss, the second miss goes too far. Young Master Pei was your betrothed first. She stole him and still mocks you like this. It matters not, I smiled faintly. Let her gloat for a few days. What harm? I stroked my abdomen. The pomegranate spirit is essence warm as spring within me. This power could not only strengthen my own body, but nourish others as well. If the Crown Prince truly was as sickly as rumoured, perhaps my essence could lend him aid. That night, I dreamt. In my dream, I stood in a magnificent palace hall, 5 adorable children in my arms, all calling, Mother, in soft, sweet voices that melted my heart. Shen Huayu stood outside the hall, her face deathly pale, eyes filled with disbelief. I woke with a smile as the cock's crow sounded outside my window. Early the next morning, the Shen Manor bustled with activity. The heir of the Duke of Dingguo's household was coming to deliver betrothal gifts, and Mother had specifically ordered the servants to decorate the main hall festively. I changed into plain robes and went to the main hall accompanied by Chunxing. Shen Huayu already sat in the place of honor, her crimson gown making her look ravishing. Seeing me enter, displeasure flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by a smile. Elder sister has come. Perfect timing to see what fine things young Master Pei has sent. Just as she finished speaking, the steward entered to announce, The young master has arrived. A young man in brocade robes entered, striking features, distinguished bearing. This was Pei Yunjin, legitimate eldest son of the Duke of Dingguo's household. Young Master Pei. Shen Huayu rose to greet him, curtsying bashfully. How kind of you to come in person. Pei Yunjin returned the courtesy, though his gaze inadvertently swept over me, his eyes holding complexity, nostalgia, guilt, and something indefinable. I lowered my eyes without responding. These are the betrothal gifts I've prepared for second Miss Shen, Pei Yunjin gestured, and his attendants brought forward over a dozen rosewood chests. I hope you'll accept them. The chests opened one by one, revealing precious jewelry, silks, and antiques. Shen Huayu's eyes lit up, though she spoke politely. Young master is too generous. As it should be, Pei Yunjin said, yet his gaze turned to me again. I wonder if elder Miss Shen's wedding date has been set. Shen Huayu's expression soured, her tone somewhat stiff. Elder sister will marry into the Eastern Palace. Naturally, the Empress Dowager will decide. Why does young master ask? I merely inquire after an old friend, Pei Yunjin said mildly. After all, Miss Shen and I were once betrothed. At these words, Shen Huayu's face darkened further. She gripped her handkerchief tightly, forcing a smile. That is all in the past. Now young master and I are the perfectly matched couple. Pei Yunjin said nothing more, but before leaving, he withdrew a brocade box from his robes and handed it to me. This jade pendant was left by my maternal grandmother. I'd intended to give it to my future wife, since fate has decreed otherwise. Please accept it as my blessing, elder Miss Shen. I accepted the box with thanks. After Pei Yunjin departed, Shen Huayu could contain herself no longer. She smashed her teacup to the floor. Shen Yanhuan, what are you playing at? You're about to marry, yet you still seduce my betrothed. Younger sister speaks too harshly, I said calmly. Young Master Pei merely remembered old affections and sent a modest gift. Modest. Shen Huayu laughed coldly. That is the Pei family's heirloom jade. Do you think I don't know its significance? I watched her lose composure, feeling only calm within. In the previous life, she'd married the crown prince, and after his early death, remarried Pei Yunjin. Presumably they'd been deeply in love then, and he'd placed this jade on her himself. But in this life, Pei Yunjin still held a place for me in his heart. How could she bear it? If younger sister likes it, I can return it to you. I opened the box to reveal a lustrous white jade. I've no use for it anyway. Keep it. Shen Huayu stood, her voice trembling. Take it as part of your dowry to the Eastern Palace. You'll have something to remember when you're widowed. With that, she stormed off in fury. 3 days later, father brought me to the palace for an audience with the Empress Dowager. The palace gates loomed imposingly, red walls and golden tiles gleaming in the sunlight. I followed father through layer upon layer of palace halls, yet my heart remained remarkably calm. The pomegranate spirit is essence warmed within me, as if responding to the turning point of fate about to arrive. In the signing palace, the Empress Dowager sat in the seat of honor, her phoenix eyes narrowed as she assessed me. Several palace matrons stood on either side, all stern-faced. Is this the girl? The Empress Dowager asked, her voice commanding. Your Majesty, this is my daughter, Shen Yanhuan, father replied respectfully. The Empress Dowager dismissed father with a wave, her gaze lingering on me. Raise your head. Let me have a proper look. I complied, meeting the Empress Dowager's eyes. She is comely enough, the Empress Dowager said mildly. Only rather too delicate. I wonder if she can shoulder the responsibilities of Crown Princess. Though Yanhuan's constitution is delicate, her resolve is firm, I replied without civility or arrogance. Since your Majesty has shown me such favor, I shall certainly devote myself wholeheartedly to assisting His Highness. Approval flickered in the Empress Dowager's eyes. Do you know of the Crown Prince's condition? I've heard something of it. Then are you willing? The Empress Dowager's voice suddenly softened. I shan't hide it from you, the Crown Prince's health is indeed poor. The physicians say he won't survive past 25. If you harbor resentment, speak now. I shan't blame you. I knelt in obeisance. Since Yanhuan has accepted this match, I have no regrets. Life and death are fated. Yanhuan is willing to share well and woe with His Highness. The Empress Dowager fell silent for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Good child, rise. She had a matron help me up. I shall see whether you can bring the Crown Prince a turning point. Just then, footsteps sounded outside the hall. A eunuch hurried in. Your Majesty, His Highness the Crown Prince requests an audience. The Empress Dowager started. Why has he come? Shouldn't he be convalescing in the Eastern Palace today? His Highness says he wishes to meet his future Crown Princess. My heart skipped. In the previous life, Shen Huayu had said the Crown Prince was so gravely ill, he couldn't even leave his bed. Yet now he could come in person. Let him enter, the Empress Dowager ordered, a trace of relief in her eyes. It is rare for him to show such consideration. The hall doors opened. and a man in dark robes entered with measured steps. Though his gait showed slight weakness, his bearing remained composed. He wore a silver mask, revealing only a pair of penetrating eyes. Those eyes, when they looked at me, held a hint of exploratory amusement. "Your son pays respects to Mother Empress." The Crown Prince bowed, his voice low yet pleasant. "Rise." The Empress Dowager glanced between me and the Crown Prince. "Since you've come, speak with your future Crown Princess. I shall retire to the rear hall. You young people talk amongst yourselves." With that, the Empress Dowager actually rose and departed, leaving only the Crown Prince and me. Only the Crown Prince and I remained in the signing palace. He sat on an embroidered stool opposite me, those penetrating eyes behind the silver mask regarding me with assessment. The hall was utterly silent, save for the tinkling of wind chimes at the eaves. "Miss Shen, are you not frightened?" he suddenly asked, his voice even lower than before. "Frightened of what?" I asked calmly. "Of this appearance of mine." The Crown Prince gestured to his mask. "The capital's rumors say my face is hideous, my temperament perverse, and that I won't live past 25. They say marrying me is merely to bring good fortune through joy." I shook my head. "If your Highness were truly as the rumors claim, you wouldn't care for my feelings or make this special visit." The Crown Prince paused, then laughed softly. That laugh carried a hint of weakness, yet also genuine warmth. "You're rather clever." He stood and walked to the window, his back to me. "Miss Shen, do you know why this marriage fell to you? Because my younger sister from home stole my original betrothal. Why did she steal it?" I hesitated, then decided to test the waters. "Because she knew marrying young Master Pei was a good match, whilst marrying your Highness, whilst marrying me brings ill fortune, makes one a living widow." The Crown Prince finished my sentence, his voice tinged with self-mockery. "I've heard such words often enough. That wasn't my meaning." I rose and approached him. "I only meant to say that some people value immediate wealth and honor too highly, not realizing that fortune and misfortune are unpredictable." The Crown Prince turned, those eyes fixed intently on me. "You see things clearly." He paused. "Actually, I know your second Miss Shen has been reborn." My heart jolted, though I maintained composure. "Why does your Highness say so?" "Because I've been reborn as well," the Crown Prince said mildly. "In my previous life, I died within 6 months of ascending the throne. Your younger sister spent 3 years in widowhood before remarrying young Master Pei Yunjin. Now it was my turn to be shocked. So the Crown Prince was also reborn. Then this time, your Highness, this time I won't repeat past mistakes." The Crown Prince's tone was resolute. "In my previous life, I died early because I was poisoned with a slow-acting toxin. The one who poisoned me was none other than the Crown Princess of that time, your sister, Shen Huayu." I drew a sharp breath. No wonder Shen Huayu was so desperate to steal young Master Pei's betrothal. She wasn't just avoiding widowhood, she was guilty and afraid. "Why does your Highness tell me this?" "Because I need an ally." The Crown Prince looked at me. "Do you hate your sister?" "I do," I answered without hesitation. "She stole my betrothal, ruined my reputation, and wanted to watch me become a widow. How could I not hate such a person?" Satisfaction flickered in the Crown Prince's eyes. "Good, then let us cooperate. I'll help you take revenge, and you help me eliminate hidden threats. What say you?" I bowed in obeisance. "I am willing." The Crown Prince approached and suddenly removed his mask. Beneath it was a pale yet handsome face. His features were distinct, his eyes and brows carrying a hint of morbid beauty, nothing like the hideousness of rumor. "Your Highness's appearance," I was somewhat surprised. "All exaggeration and falsehood." The Crown Prince smiled lightly. "Years ago, to avoid court intrigues, I deliberately spread such rumors. I never imagined they'd become truth, making even marriage difficult." He replaced his mask, his tone growing serious. Miss Shen, the wedding is set for 1 month hence. During this month, you must prepare yourself. Once you enter the Eastern Palace, you'll no longer be the eldest miss of the Shen household, but the crown princess who must stand united with me against our enemies. I understand. One more thing, the crown prince paused. Do you have any means to help restore my health? Though I was poisoned to death in my previous life, this sickly body is genuinely weak. If I cannot grow stronger, how can I contend with those who covet my position? I thought of the pomegranate spirit as essence within me, hesitating before saying, I may have a method, but it requires your highness's trust. Speak. I once had a fortuitous encounter in the back mountains. I chose my words carefully. Within me flows a special power that can nourish others. If your highness doesn't mind, I'm willing to try. Surprise flashed in the crown prince's eyes. What encounter? The essence of a 1,000-year-old pomegranate spirit, I told him truthfully. It transferred half its power to me, not only strengthening my body, but blessing me with extraordinary fertility. The crown prince fell silent for a long while, then suddenly smiled. I see. I wondered why your complexion was so good. You've had a fortuitous encounter. He approached me, speaking earnestly. If that is the case, this marriage is heaven's will, Miss Shen. I trust you. I raised my hand, a faint red glow emanating from my palm. The manifestation of the pomegranate spirit is essence. I placed my hand on the crown prince's wrist, and a warm current slowly flowed into his body. Surprise flickered in the crown prince's eyes. He closed them to feel the power. Moments later, his pale complexion actually gained a hint of color. Remarkable. The crown prince opened his eyes, filled with delight. I feel much lighter. This is only temporary. I withdrew my hand. To fully restore your health requires daily infusions of essence. After we're married, I shall treasure you well. The crown prince interrupted, his eyes sincere. I won't let you suffer even the slightest grievance. Just then, the Empress Dowager's voice came from outside the hall. How goes your conversation? We hastily composed ourselves. The Empress Dowager entered, noting the crown prince's complexion was slightly better than before. Relief showed in her eyes. It seems you've conversed well. Mother Empress, your son is most satisfied, the crown prince said. The Empress Dowager smiled. If so, the wedding date shall be set for the 8th day of next month. Yan Huan, prepare yourself well at home this month. When the time comes, I shall send people to fetch you. Yes, thank you, Your Majesty. After taking leave of the Empress Dowager, Father waited for me outside the palace. Seeing my composed expression, he nodded with satisfaction. It seems the crown prince is rather satisfied with you. Return home and prepare your dowry properly. Don't bring shame to the Shen family. Upon returning to the Shen manor, Shen Huayu was already waiting in my courtyard. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. Elder sister, did you see the crown prince? What does he look like? Is he truly as hideous as rumor claims? Why does younger sister ask when she already knows? I said mildly. The crown prince wore a mask. I didn't see his true face. Disappointment flashed in Shen Huayu's eyes, quickly followed by a smile. True enough, sister probably won't ever see his real face, since invalids don't live long anyway. I watched her gloat, inwardly sneering. She thought the crown prince would be poisoned to death by her as in the previous life, never imagining he'd been reborn and her schemes were already useless. Younger sister speaks truly. I deliberately sighed. Still, to marry into the imperial family is my good fortune. Seeing my resignation, Shen Huayu grew even more smug. Sister is sensible. Oh, young Master Pei sent people again yesterday with more betrothal gifts. Mother told me to select the finest. Would sister like to come see? No need. I shook my head. Those are younger sister's betrothal gifts. It wouldn't be proper for me to look. Sister certainly knows propriety. Shen Huayu laughed coldly and turned to leave. After she'd gone, Chongqing couldn't help saying, "Miss, why are you so courteous to her? She makes things difficult for you at every turn, yet you always yield." "It is not yielding," I said mildly. "I'm waiting for the right moment." Chongqing didn't understand, and I didn't explain further. In the days that followed, I circulated the pomegranate spirit as essence within me each night, preparing for the coming wedding. That power grew ever stronger, as if sensing its approaching purpose. I knew that once I married into the Eastern Palace and shared a bed with the Crown Prince, this power could truly manifest. Not only would the Crown Prince's health be fully restored, we would have children, and not just 1 or 2, but 5. Thinking of that scene filled me with anticipation. Shen Huayu thought I'd be widowed, never knowing that in a year's time, I'd stand before her holding 5 children. What would her expression be then? The 8th day of next month arrived swiftly. On the wedding day, the Shen manor was festooned with lanterns and decorations. I donned my crimson wedding robes, phoenix crown and sad, and walked from my chambers supported by the wedding attendant. Shen Huayu stood in the courtyard. Seeing me in full bridal regalia, jealousy flashed in her eyes. But she quickly remembered the fate awaiting me, and jealousy transformed into schadenfreude. "Elder sister looks beautiful today." She approached, her voice dropping low. "What a pity you won't wear these wedding robes long before changing into mourning white." Through my red veil, I looked at her and said mildly, "Is that so? Then let us wait and see." The wedding procession was grand and imposing. I sat in the palanquin, listening to the drums and gongs outside. The palanquin swayed all the way, finally stopping before the Eastern Palace gates. The Eastern Palace was even more magnificent than I'd imagined palace halls layered upon palace halls, everywhere displaying imperial majesty. The wedding attendant helped me from the palanquin, and I stepped onto the path carpeted with red silk. The Crown Prince stood before the hall in crimson wedding robes waiting for me. He still wore his silver mask, but those eyes looking at me held a hint of tenderness. The wedding ceremony was brief yet solemn. As we knelt side by side before the Empress Dowager to receive her blessing, I felt the pomegranate spirit as essence within me, leaping joyfully, as if celebrating this moment's arrival. "Very well, go to your bridal chamber." The Empress Dowager smiled and waved her hand. "I shan't disturb you." In the bridal chamber, red candles flickered. The Crown Prince dismissed everyone and personally lifted my veil. "At last it is done," he said softly. "From today, you are my Crown Princess. This subject wife shall assist your Highness and live up to this trust." The Crown Prince removed his mask, revealing that pale yet handsome face. He reached out to clasp my hand. "Don't call yourself subject wife anymore. In private, call me Muyan." "Muyan, my courtesy name," he smiled. "Only those closest to me may call me thus." I nodded. "Very well, Muyan. Then you should call me Yanhuan." Muyan drew me into his embrace, his voice low. "Yanhuan, the days ahead will see us fighting side by side. Are you ready?" "I'm ready." That night, I circulated the pomegranate. Spirit is essence, and red light enveloped the entire bedchamber. I transferred the essence into Muyan's body. His pale complexion visibly reddened, the sickly air about him rapidly dissipating, replaced by vigorous vitality. "Remarkable." Muyan opened his eyes, filled with delight. "I feel strength coursing through my entire body." "This is only the beginning," I smiled. "Day after day of essence transfer will make your body ever stronger." Muyan held me tighter. "Yanhuan, I'm fortunate to have you." In the days that followed, I transferred essence to Muyan each night. His health improved daily, his complexion no longer pale. The palace servants all marveled at the crown prince's transformation, spreading word that the crown princess was a lucky star. And my belly showed signs of life just 1 month after the wedding. After taking my pulse, the physician said in amazement, "Congratulations, Your Highness, Your Highness. The crown princess shows signs of pregnancy, and the pulse is most unusual. It seems to be more than 1 child." Muyan was overjoyed, truly, absolutely certain. The physician took my pulse several more times carefully. Judging by the pulse, it is at least triplets, possibly more. When this news spread, the entire capital was in an uproar. Not only had the sickly crown prince regained his health, he'd gotten the crown princess pregnant with multiple children on the first try. This was tremendously auspicious. When the news reached the Shen manor, Shen Huaiyu was admiring flowers in her courtyard. Hearing the servant's report, the teacup in her hand crashed to the ground. "What did you say? Shen Yanhuan is pregnant, with multiples?" She stared in disbelief. "Impossible. The crown prince was gravely ill. How could he get her pregnant?" The servant trembled. "This news came from the palace itself. Absolutely true. Moreover, I heard His Highness the Crown Prince has been in excellent health these past months, and even attended court to handle state affairs a few days ago." Shen Huayu's face went deathly pale, her entire body shaking. This was completely different from her memories of the previous life. In that life, after the Crown Prince married her, his health deteriorated daily, and he died within 6 months. But in this life, not only hadn't the Crown Prince died, he was healthier than ever. "How can this be?" she muttered. "Could it be because of that wretch Shen Yanhuan? What ability does she have to bring the Crown Prince back from death's door?" Just then, Pei Yunjin sent people with betrothal gifts. But looking at those treasures, Shen Huayu felt no joy whatsoever. Only now did she realize the betrothal she'd stolen might not be a good match at all, whilst the Eastern Palace she'd given to Shen Yanhuan had become a true nest of wealth and honor. No, she couldn't just watch Shen Yanhuan soar to success. Shen Huayu entered the palace that very night, requesting to see me under the pretext of visiting her sister, elder sister. The moment she saw me, she immediately showed concern. "I heard you're with child. I came specially to see you." I sat on the daybed, hand resting on my slightly rounded belly. "Thank you for younger sister's concern." Shen Huayu's eyes were complex as she looked at my belly, forcing a smile. "Sister is truly blessed, carrying multiples on the first try. I wonder how many." "The physician said at least 3, I said mildly, "though I think there may be more." Shen Huayu's smile froze on her face. She remembered that in her previous life, when she'd married the Crown Prince, he hadn't even touched her. Yet, in this life, Shen Yanhuan had not only been touched but was carrying multiples. "Sister must be careful with your health." Shen Huayu suppressed her hatred. "Multiple pregnancies are dangerous. If anything should go wrong—" "It won't," I interrupted her. "The Crown Prince treats me very well, and has specially requested the Imperial Medical Bureau's finest physicians to care for me. Moreover, my constitution is strong. Carrying several children poses no problem." Shen Huayu bit down hard, malice flashing in her eyes. She recalled her methods of poisoning the Crown Prince in the previous life, secretly calculating whether to employ them again. But before she could act, Muyan entered. He wore dark robes, his face handsome where was even a trace of sickliness. Shen Huayu stared at him, hardly believing her eyes. "Second Miss Shen has come," Muyan said mildly. "Since you came to visit the Crown Princess, you may sit briefly before departing. The Crown Princess needs rest and shouldn't receive too many outside visitors." This was an order to leave. Shen Huayu's expression was ugly, but she dared not show temper. She forced a smile. "I was presumptuous. I shall take my leave now, elder sister. Rest well." After she left, Muyan sat beside me, his eyes full of concern. What did she come for? Nothing more than to see how I'm faring. I laughed coldly. Unfortunately for her, I've disappointed her expectations. 10 months of pregnancy, 1 day of labor. As my belly grew larger, the physician took my pulse again and discovered in amazement that I carried quintuplets. This was unprecedented in imperial history. The Empress Dowager was beside herself with joy, ordering everyone in the Eastern Palace to serve me carefully, permitting not the slightest error. When Shen Huayu heard I was carrying quintuplets, she completely fell apart. She rushed to the Shen Manor's ancestral hall and knelt before the memorial tablets, weeping bitterly. Why was I the one reborn? Yet Shen Yanhuan lives better than I do. But fate was no longer under her control. 1 year later, on a spring day, under the care of numerous physicians, I successfully delivered 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, all healthy and lively. Muyan held the children, his eyes full of tenderness. Yanhuan, you've worked so hard. It wasn't hard, I smiled weakly. Being able to bear you heirs is my blessing. On the day of the full-month celebration, the Empress Dowager specifically had me hold all 5 children for an audience with the court officials. The entire court was shaken. Not only had the Crown Prince regained his health, he now had 5 heirs. This was truly a great blessing for the nation. Shen Huayu and Pei Yonjin were also among those invited. When Shen Huayu saw Muyan and me standing side by side, Muyan radiant with health, me holding 5 adorable children, her face looked worse than a corpse's elder sister. She approached, her voice trembling. How did you not become a widow? I smiled faintly. Thanks to younger sister for giving me this match back then. Otherwise, these 5 children would have been yours. Shen Huayu swayed, barely able to stand. She remembered her own words telling me to marry the invalid, to become a widow. Yet now the Crown Prince hadn't died, but thrived, and the betrothal she'd stolen, though prestigious, was far less noble than my position as Crown Princess of the Eastern Palace. Younger sister doesn't look well, I continued. Do you regret giving me this match? I don't. Shen Huayu could barely speak coherently. Muyan came over and put his arm around my shoulders, looking at Shen Huayu with a hint of mockery. Second, Miss Shen, thank you for your generosity back then. Had you not stolen young Master Pei's betrothal, I wouldn't have married such an excellent crown princess. Shen Huayu was utterly dumbstruck. She'd never dreamt that the fate she'd schemed so hard to avoid would become someone else's blessing. And the good match she thought she'd seize seemed so insignificant compared to the Eastern Palace's wealth and honor. When the banquet ended, I returned to the bedchamber holding the 5 children. Mian sat beside me, gazing at the sleeping children with tenderness in his eyes. Yanhuan, I'm fortunate to have you, he said softly. The luckiest thing in my life was marrying you. As am I. I leaned against his shoulder. If Shen Huayu hadn't stolen young Master Pei's betrothal back then, I wouldn't have met you either. Outside the window, spring was in full bloom. Within the Eastern Palace, all was peaceful and harmonious. Meanwhile, in the Shen Manor, Shen Huayu sat before her bronze mirror in a daze, her eyes full of regret. She finally understood being reborn didn't mean everything would go as she wished. Some fates were destined to be reversed. Muyan and I weathered those difficult years hand in hand, ultimately welcoming our perfect ending. The 5 children grew up healthy, Muyan successfully ascended the throne, and I became empress. Though Shen Huayu married young Master Pei, she lived in melancholy day after day, never again showing her former smugness and arrogance. This was karmic retribution. Years later, one afternoon, I sat in the imperial garden, watching the 5 children play amongst the flowers. Muyan came over and sat beside me. What are you thinking about? He asked. I'm thinking about how Shen Huayu once said, I'd be widowed, I smiled. Who could have imagined that not only did I not become a widow, I bore you 5 children. Muyen clasped my hand. It was all fate. Without your pomegranate spirit essence, I wouldn't have lived to see today. And without your trust in me, I wouldn't have my position today. We exchanged smiles, everything understood without words. Sunlight fell warmly upon us. The 5 children ran over, calling Father Emperor and Mother Empress in unison, their voices soft and sweet, melting one's heart. This was the life I wanted, not wealth and honor, but a family safe and happy together, growing old side by side. As for Shen Huayu, I'd heard she'd fallen ill again recently. Melancholy day after day. Though Pei Yunjin treated her well, something always seemed to stand between them. Sometimes I wondered if she hadn't stolen my betrothal back then, would things have turned out differently? But on reflection, had that been the case, I wouldn't have met Muyen, wouldn't have these 5 lovely children, wouldn't have today's happiness. So the saying goes, misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. Shen Huayu thought she'd stolen my good match, not knowing it was actually her calamity, and the ill-fated marriage she'd given me became my life's greatest blessing instead. Fate is so wonderfully strange. You never know what the next step will bring. But I know that, as long as one harbors kindness and holds fast to one's true heart, blessings will naturally arrive. Just as that 1,000-year-old pomegranate spirit said, many children bring many blessings. Good deeds bring good rewards. My story is the best proof of that. The greatest irony in life is this. The fate you desperately flee is precisely the fortune others would kill for. The treasure you scheme to possess turns out to be nothing but fool's gold. Shen Huayu was too clever, by half his machinations cost him dearly. Not a life, mind you, but his own blessed destiny. If you've enjoyed this little tale of karmic justice, do give us a thumbs up. Let's spread the word about how fate has a wicked sense of humor. Hit subscribe whilst you are at it, so you won't miss the next serving of cosmic comeuppance. And pop down to the comments. Tell us what you reckon. Did Shen Huayu get his just deserts, or are you cheering for Yan Huan? We're all ears.